Hello, I'm Dr. Basil Considine. I'm here from the ACU Online Writing Center, and today we're going to be talking about writing and grounding a personal definition when writing in APA style. So this is a task-specific webinar where we explore a writing task that happens to be found in one assignment, but is also something that you'll find across many programs where you're asked to integrate your personal and professional observations, your background, your experiences, and your belief. So if you are not enrolled in the particular program that we've drawn this assignment from, but you do have to do any of these tasks, don't worry, this is the right webinar, and we will also refer you to some related resources if you want to dive further. A little bit about the Online Writing Center. We work with students across ACU online through the ACU Dallas campus with just about all the online programs that we have. Students can work with us through webinars such as this, through sending us emails to schedule appointments for feedback on your drafts or to discuss things. You can either have an asynchronous appointment where you schedule a time, upload your paper, we look at it and send you feedback, generally within 24 hours, or whether you schedule a real-time appointment via phone or Zoom. And you can do that both through our scheduling system and through the Online Writing Center website. Yes, indeed, whether you are looking for an appointment in real time or asynchronously, you can do all that sign-ups just by going right to my.acu.edu under the resources link, select Online Writing Center, and just follow the instructions. For a phone or Zoom appointment, whether you choose one of those or the other, it's totally a matter of preferences. We have people who go back and forth depending on where they are. Sometimes they're riding in a car, and so they can look at the paper, riding, not driving. They can look at the paper, but they don't have a fast internet connection because they're on the highway. Or you might be in a place where you're in your office, and so you have a high-speed internet connection, and you do want to see the screen and be able to ask questions about formatting and such, and see tactily, okay, that's where you click, that's how this looks, etc. So it's a matter of preference, and students will go back and forth depending on their schedule, the particular inquiries that they have, etc. So we also have a number of templates and other resources that we have on the Online Writing Center website. The basic process, you will go to the my.acu system, which will bring you to the WC Online scheduling system. You sign up for the time, and by the time the appointment rolls around, you will have uploaded a paper draft. It doesn't need to be complete. You can have a paragraph, a sentence, 5 pages. If you have a very long draft, we'll give it our best shot for the time allowed, but there's only so much things you can do in a 1-hour appointment. So if, say, you have a 30-page dissertation chapter, you will probably have to come back for a second appointment. And if you do that, just in your appointment notes indicate, oh, I got feedback on pages 1 to 20 already. Could you please focus on pages 21 to 30? And I did some major revisions on page 15. Could you please look at those? Perfectly all right. Happy to accommodate requests like that. Now, I mentioned our AP course paper templates. I'll be referring to that later. I do recommend, if you're watching this on video, that you pause and download a copy if you don't have one already. And we do have many of our videos available on our YouTube channel for on-the-go viewing. Our regular website will always be the most complete, most current, but the vast majority of our webinars are on the YouTube channel, and we add them as we go along. Alright, so we're going to be talking about 4 major learning objectives today. First, to discuss the APA guidelines for writing about yourself and things that you believe. Second, we're going to look at a sample assignment from FAMO 362, the Week 1 Assignment 1, Defining Family. And then we're going to talk about how to do one of the tasks in that assignment to connect your beliefs to the literature. And we'll finish with a discussion of how to outline and draft this paper. So, what does APA 7th edition have to say about writing about yourself? And this is an important thing if you've been out of school for a while or you've been working with someone who learned an earlier version of APA style, because there were periods of academic writing where the thought was, well, you shouldn't insert yourself in there. That's making it a not scientific writing. It's making it personal and subjective. And while there were some good intentions there, eventually people realize, this is making it really hard to tell whose belief this actually is, because you're writing about someone, oh yes, a university professor, middle-aged, who does this or that, and you're like, oh, hold on, are you talking about yourself or someone else? Or it's like, oh yes, this sort of belief is common to a typical college student, 20 years of age, enrolled in, like, it sounds like you're talking about yourself, why not just tell us? And so, in the name of preciseness, accuracy, and conciseness, current versions of APA style, namely APA 7th edition and 6th edition before it, emphasize clarifying who did what using personal pronouns. So let's look at what that looks like in practice. That means you can use I statements to tell us things like, oh, if you have an autobiographical paper, I grew up in here. I believe this. I started doing that. If you are referring to your things, you can, of course, use my as well, the possessive pronoun, or say me. This is important to me. Now, where people often go astray, or where they're confused about the rules, is most people have, at some point in their writing training, been advised not to use too many I statements. And here's how that manifests. If you have too many I statements in a paragraph, it can distract the reader from the thing you actually want them to be focused on. Now, it's one thing to clarify, oh, I did this, and then list some things related to you, once you've clarified that you are talking about who you are given the big picture. But if you have lots of I statements in a row, it can make it sound like it being you is the most important thing, when you actually want them to pay attention to different details. So compare these two pieces of text. I'm a student researcher at ACU. I am very interested in things such as painting, running, and watching movies. I work 2 jobs on campus, and I live off campus, which makes the commute hard on days that I also work. As opposed to, I'm a student researcher at ACU. My interests include painting, running, and watching movies. Because I live off campus and work on campus, I have a long work commute on non-class days. Now, those have a very different feel, even though the information is the same. And indeed, by asking the question of what is the thing that you want people to focus on, in the second example, by saying, oh, here's the explanation of why I have a long work commute, that change in organization creates a more clear emphasis. Oh, you're describing things about you, and if you were to then talk about, oh, yes, I'm very tired with X, or it's important to me to take breaks, then it follows as, oh, that's why you were telling us those things. So what are your takeaways from that? Well, first, use I statements when you're doing the action, or you being the person that this happened to, is important. Second, do use my to clarify ownership and association. And also, don't write about yourself indirectly or in third person unless you've already clarified who is doing the action. So, for example, in this next passage, I will be conducting all of the recruitment and data collection for this project. Participants will receive surveys to fill out prior to being interviewed. They will also participate in a focus group and fill out an exit survey. Once we've clarified who's doing the action in that first sentence, we don't need to mention that, and it lets us focus on this particular details of the surveys, rather than, I will be conducting all the recruitment and data collection for this project. I will meet with all participants to receive the surveys to fill out prior to being interviewed. I will also gather them to participate in a focus group. It just makes it sound like you're the most important thing rather than you're describing the process, which is what you would do for most of the time. Some examples of phrasing that you might use in this assignment that we're going to discuss. I believe that. I personally define this thing as the other. My definition of this thing aligns with this person, who defined it as blah. Or my definition of this thing aligns with this author, who defined it as, quote, and then page citation. So let's look at the assignment in question. And this is coming from our FAMO program, from the Families and Society course, particularly the Week 1, Assignment 1, Defining Family. And I have reorganize the instructions just a little bit to clarify what each portion is asking you to do. So this first part is really a preamble. It tells you, oh, here's the general purpose of the assignment, the big picture. After completing this assignment, students will have a preliminary understanding of how family is defined, considering modern changes. Students will consider and formulate how they define family and be able to support this assertion. And knowing what is the preamble is a very helpful thing for separating it from the to-do list, and also looking at if you are at loss for what to write, to see, okay, what is this supposed to be connecting to? And to be able to go back and show those details and say, okay, well, this is how I'm showing my understanding of this in light of modern changes, for example. Let's move on to the main instructions. Consider different family permutations in your sphere of life. Avoid using any media or television as a guide. Using the article from Amato and the definitions used in the 2020 census, write a 700 to 800 word APA formatted paper explaining your definition of family. For full credit, you must have at least 6 distinctive family characteristics, and you must be able to support each of your inclusions with definitions for each term. Use examples from the readings to support your work. Okay, so that is roughly 3 full pages of text. Could be a little bit longer, could be a tad shorter, but roughly 3 full pages of text, not counting the title page or the references. And you're asked to define family. And because it says consider different family permutations, it is possible that you have more than one definition. It is possible that not all families as you define them will have all of these characteristics, and you're not limited to 6, but you need at least 6 to get full credit. And if we take a look at the rubric for this, we see it's mostly recapitulating things, but note that 25% of the grade is, are you using readings to support the paper? So you should definitely be mentioning them and discussing details from the readings here. And note that another 25% is, have you written it within the stated length, 700 to 800 words? Is it formatted on APA style guidelines? And do you have the required in-text citations and reference page? So if you're unsure about the APA formatting, we can absolutely help you with that. And I would encourage you to make an appointment with the Writing Center. We certainly talk about a lot more than APA style, but it is something that we look at as part and parcel, because APA style is in part a way of being specific and precise as you write and describe things and show where the information came from. So looking at the formatting is almost an integral part of looking at the writing, because it clarifies a lot about what exactly you're saying. So next, let's talk about how to connect your beliefs to the literature, because this is, after all, something that 25% of the grade is coming from, and we all want to get full credit on that. So if we look back at the instructions, this is the part where it's saying you must be able to support each of your inclusions with definitions for each term, and to use examples from the readings to support your work. So here's an example of something that you're probably not going to include, but you could, that uses one of those readings. I believe that all families should include what the U.S. Census Bureau 2021 described as secondary individuals. Therefore, my current family includes my 2 roommates. However, I also believe that my dog Gracie is also a member of the family, and include her on my family list, even though she is not human and dogs are not mentioned in the U.S. Census Bureau definition. Now, what is this text doing? It's describing a characteristic of family, perhaps not for all, but a potential characteristic. And it's saying, okay, so you're starting with the Census Bureau guideline. And by the way, 2021 is the last time that they updated the page that is assigned as the reading. So while it may have originally gone up in 2020, it was last updated. The version you look at online was last updated in 2021, hence that date. So it's saying, starting with that definition, therefore my current family includes those roommates. But I want to expand that to also include my dog Gracie. Now, I don't know about your personal experience. People's attitudes to pets vary, but I've definitely met some people who say that their parents love their pet more than they love them. And some people who say, well, if my partner leaves me, well, so long as they don't take the dog, because I've had the dog longer and love them more, and they love me more too. So, whatever your definition, this is your definition of family that you're giving here, so you can include whatever you want, but you should be backing it up and should be relating it to the assigned reading, whether it's referring to the Bogenschneider book, the main course text, or whether you are referring to the Amato article, or the Goodnow reading, that's a newspaper article, or going back to those census definitions that we saw earlier in the example. So make sure that you list the author and the year of publication in your citation. If you are quoting directly, make sure that you include a page or paragraph number. So, for example, citing the U.S. Census website, because that page does not have page numbers on it, you would count the paragraphs and say paragraph 12, for example. Now, if you're doing these other resources and they have page numbers, then you would give that. The newspaper article, it kind of depends if you are looking at the printed version or if you're looking at the online version of the article. So if you have the print version or a scan of the print version, you would give us the page number. If you're looking at the online one, you would just count the paragraphs up. And now, as far as outlining and drafting, so I'm going to recommend a couple resources if you want to go further into how to write about yourself and your beliefs. So we have our Deep Reflections webinar, and we also have the Healthcare Administration Personal and Professional Reflections webinar, both of which talk about how to write about beliefs and to relate them to events, to readings, and other resources here. Now, going back to the assignment description here, how would you organize this paper? Well, I always recommend that when you're given a prompt or question that you answer it directly. So, looking at this, we see the first instruction about what to write is in that second paragraph. Explain your definition of family. So I would start out the paper with, my definition of family is blah, or I personally define family as blah. And then you'd want to list however many characteristics you've decided. Make sure it's at least 6. Does not have to be only 6, but list those key characteristics. I would use the term distinctive family characteristics, so it's clear that you're referring to the exact thing that the paper instructions are asking you to do. And then discuss each in turn. If you have some space left, you can write about things like, okay, so what does this mean? Now, are there people that you are including with your definition who are not included by the rest of society? Are there people that you are excluding? I have a friend whose husband passed away, and she moved in with another family, and they were raising all of their kids together. It is, not the quote-unquote standard family, but it's certainly a definition of family. And does yours include something like that in your experience? Or do you leave it out, and what are the implications of that? Those are some of the things you can write about it. But you want to be referring back to the literature. And, let's just take a look at the readings for the course really quick. So if we look at the Week 1 readings and resources, we have, okay, why should we focus on families and policy making and why we don't? Defining family policy and identity of its own. What is a family from the National Council on Family Relations, the U.S. Census definitions, and the way we weren't, talking about, these imagined ideas about how things have always been or not always been. And so each of these is a piece of reading that explains certain ideas and perspectives about how family is defined or could be defined. And partly you might ask yourself the question, well, why is your own definition of family important to you? And that may have something to do with your upbringing. It may have something to do with an ideal or a model, whatever it is, tell us about that and relate it, because within these readings you'll find a lot of different thoughts about how a family is or isn't being defined. And if you are disagreeing with something, tell us why. If you're agreeing with something, tell us why. And with that, you'll have an easy time filling 3 good pages of discussion on this. So make sure to go back to the rubric and make sure you have your main definition, the 6 at least defining characteristics, that they're discussed in detail, and you support it with anecdote, with reference to the readings, and then make sure that you're doing this within the parameters there. One last thing. We sometimes have people write to the Writing Center saying, "Hi, I'm looking for ways to trim my paper. Say I wrote 1,200 words and it's supposed to be 800 words maximum. Can you give suggestions about what to cut?" And that is something we're happy to do. A lot of people will write more than they have to just to get it down, and then you can look at, okay, do I need that? Is that required for this paper? Is there a way to say that more concisely or more directly? And that is something we're happy to assist on. So if that sounds like it will be helpful to you, just make an appointment, send us your draft, and in the appointment notes, let us know that you're trying to fit this down within a word limit, and we can keep that in mind as we're getting you your feedback. Any other questions? You are more than welcome to write us at onlinewritingcenter@acu.edu. Again, do grab a copy of that course paper template because it makes a lot of formatting easier and faster. You can sign up for an appointment by going to the My ACU portal and selecting the resources links. Select Online Writing Center, follow the instructions, or head to the Online Writing Center directly to access our video recordings, grab templates, and other stuff. If you have any other questions, feel free to send us an email, and we will catch you later. Bye.